I've recently had a couple patients come in and say that they've been a little uncomfortable in their neck, or their vertigo hasn't gone away, they're vertigo patients, and that indicator of vertigo always has meant to me that there's a counter rotation up at the brainstem, usually C1, C2. So one of the first things that I looked at was, what am I missing as far as counter rotation? And I saw that on each one of these patients that the pelvis and the shoulders were counter rotated. So as we were decompressing the body and using only the pelvis, we were actually turning it and opening it, but leaving in the shoulder twist or even enhancing it. So what we've done now is, if there's a counter twist, is we use the shoulder twist first. So if the shoulder is rotated anterior on the side of the bow and the pelvis is rotated posterior on the side of the bow, we use the anterior rotation of the shoulder. We remove that first, and then the shoulder is either going to come to the pelvis, or the pelvis is then going to go to the shoulder, and then you'll follow the normal protocol. So let's go look at a patient that has a counter rotation. I'll show it to you, and then I'll show you, and we'll work through it together. Okay, so we're going to work with Candace today, and we're going to check the pelvic rotation like we always do with the lasers. And we are going to see, since she's wearing black, we're going to see that she has a posterior rotation in the pelvis, and up in the shoulders she has an anterior rotation. So she has a posterior 5 in the pelvis, she has an anterior 3 in the shoulders. She has a left bow. Let's take a look at her on the grid. Come on over here.
Face forward or back?
Face me. Okay. So she has a left low shoulder, a left bow. So we're going to start with the rotation of the shoulders in that area. And the shoulder was rotated posterior. Please come with me. So we're going to start left side up. So we're just going to ignore the rotation of the pelvis for now, because what we want to do is we want to get the shoulder and the pelvis to become coplanar. Get the shoulder underneath. Shoulder underneath. Come on up. First thing we're going to do is we're going to integrate. So we have an LP. So I'm going to lift the head, close this side of the myofascial envelope, bring the chin back for the posterior. Okay, we're going to push the shoulder forward. This is a key thing. We have a corkscrew here, so we're going to push the shoulder forward, but we're going to have the pelvis backward, because so we're going to, now the force will travel down a spiral. It's going to come through P and go A, down lower in the pelvis. And now we're just going to integrate here. So we're just going to follow the posterior pathway, which runs along here. Just feeling the resistance and overcoming it. And overcoming resistance is like sitting on a life raft that has a hole in it. It just collapses, it goes down, and then you hit the bottom of the floor. And then you go look for other pathways. Here's another one right here, just a little bit lower. Okay, that's clear. Now we're going to decompress. This time we're going to close the left anterior pathway, tuck the chin, traction, same thing, forward, backward, make sure that the head's down, and we're going to go and decompress. Everything right now, this is to get the rotation out in the decompression. Feeling the pathway, find the most posterior pathway and work forward. Here I'm most posterior, work forward, work forward, work forward, work forward, following the pathways and the anatomy train, which we're going to talk about in the next video. And she's clear there. We're going to come on up. Okay, so here we go. So now we're going to check. We're going to see where her rotation is. I don't care about the frontal plane right now. I care about getting the rotations coplanar. All right, so what I have now is I have a posterior that actually got bigger in the pelvis on the left, and the shoulder is caught up. So we have a posterior left shoulder, and we have a posterior left pelvis. So now come with me. So we've already gone with the left posterior and cleared that out in decompression. the shoulder has come to the pelvis, and sometimes the pelvis will come to the shoulder, and we could talk about that another day, but in this case, the shoulder came to the pelvis. So we're going to flip her over. So we already have the LP down, okay? Come on up a little bit. So the pelvis came to the shoulder. And we're going to roll everything back now. Okay, because they're both together. We're going to lift the chin because we're going to contact the LP quadrant on the other side in decompression with a down head piece. And on this we want to find the lowest pathway. Here it is. We start clearing upward. Clear the pathway upward. That's where the anterior pathways are. They run along the jaw. Clearing the rotation and just letting it release. Just I feel it. I overcome the tension and it releases. And it releases. And it releases. Remove and release. Find the pathways and remove and release them. So we've created a coplanar shoulder and pelvis. And then we go into decompression. We release them. We'll take a look now. So original was a left bow. Okay. Okay, rotation's clear. Okay, she has a posterior 1 here and a 0 down below, so we're all good there. And she has a right weight though. So now we're going to go to the right side up. Come with me. Okay, first step was to integrate in the bow, and then what we did is we decompressed and we got the shoulder and the pelvic rotation coplanar. So they're both in the same plane. They both became posterior on the left side. All right. Then we needed to get the rotation out now. So we flipped her over and we got it out on the right anterior side. But now she has weight. So we go back to the left side, which is protecting the bow. She has right weight and a left bow. So now what we're going to do is drop the head out, let the force come around the circular pathway, and we're going to clear her out. And it's all going to be over. Good. Create tension, proper headpiece and skull placement. Tuck your chin. Good, right there. Okay, so we're contacting the right anterior pathway. Little neurology there, huh? Mm-hmm. So she's got a lot of frontal pathways here. So we're dealing with the frontal plane here. We've gotten rid of the transverse plane and the sagittal plane by decompression. And now what we're doing is we're clearing the frontal plane. One of the things that I found is the frontal plane is non-rotational. So I'm also going to check the anterior pathway over here. Okay? And make sure that's clear. Again, the frontal plane, which is the skull tilt and the body weight, is not dependent on rotation. So once you clear the rotation, you could check anterior and posterior pathways. And that's what I'm doing, and she's got some anterior pathways here, and she's clear. I'm just going to come back to the posterior one. I always come back where I start to make sure that I've completed it. Because sometimes you clear something else, and there's something behind it. And there the whole thing clears. Come on up. We're going to make sure that the rotational planes are still good, and the frontal plane. So I just ran the rotation on the frontal plane, excuse me, and the digital scale is reading 0.8, and the rotation, she's actually posterior 1 here, which is well within normal limits, and up in the shoulder, she is 100% clear. Perfect 0. Head's vertical. So what we did is we got the shoulder and the pelvis to become coplanar by using the shoulder rotation, because energy travels down. So you got to clear that first, and then sometimes the shoulder will come to the pelvis, sometimes the pelvis will come to the shoulder, and what you'll do is then follow the basic protocol. Thank you. I'm Dr. Russell Friedman for QSM3.